So now we want to talk about uh, another aspect of marriage, which is divorce, actually. May Allah protect you, uh, and things that go along with that, like khula and iddah and anything else that Allah Ta'ala guides us to. Excuse me. So let's start with the divorce. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam, he said that divorce is the right of the man. This means that a woman cannot divorce herself. Had a woman been able to divorce herself, she would have done so immediately. So that's why it's not given to her. It's not granted. The issue is easier for us than it is for the kuffar. They make their divorce long, drawn out, difficult process because they make everything difficult. Even selling a house is difficult. Selling a car is difficult. Those are difficult people. But religiously, all of that's so easy. And the divorce is easy also, and the marriage is easy too. So it doesn't require, neither the marriage nor the divorce require any paperwork religiously. The divorce only requires a statement. And so, had the woman had this permission, she would have used it immediately. That's a general statement too, but Allah knows the percentage of how true that is. Yani some people, because according to the Hanafis, a woman can um, give herself in marriage to a man under the condition that her affair is in her own hand. This means that she can divorce herself. If she does that, then she says, I divorce myself. She doesn't say to her husband, you're divorced. Rather, she says, I divorce myself. So, some people who did that, and they saw that, as soon as she was troubled about something there, she divorced herself. Whereas man's not going to do it so quickly. Yeah, and that's known for sure too. Of course, some men divorce quickly, but if the men divorced quickly, then there wouldn't be so many sisters who wish that they could get out of their marriage. MashaAllah. So the divorce is the right of the man. And it takes place by a mere statement. That's the original way. A mere statement. A statement of divorce. But the thing is that this statement might be explicit or it might not be explicit. It might be explicit or it might be implicit. Explicit means the statement doesn't mean anything but divorce. Like for him to say to his wife, I divorce you, or you are divorced. So then she is divorced regardless of his intention. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Thalathun jidduhunna jidd wa hazluhunna jidd." There are three things. Their seriousness is serious, and their kidding around is serious. Their seriousness is serious, and their kidding around is serious. Marriage, divorce, and returning the wife to the marriage, which we'll talk about when we talk about idda, inshallah, or divorce. Yeah, not idda, but divorce. When we talk about divorce, which we're talking about now, we get into the process of it. Then we'll see how the return works. An implicit divorce is like saying, "You are unlawful for me." That's not an explicit divorce statement. So it requires an intention. If he said that with the intention of divorce, then she would be divorced. Uh, or like if he said to her, go back to your family with the intention of divorcing her. Or if he said to her, cover yourself before me, or something like that. So once the divorce statement is pronounced, then she's divorced. And sometimes it's haram for him to do it, but it's still going to be valid. When is haram for him to divorce her? It's haram for him to divorce her when she's not menstruating, but he had sexual intercourse with her during this non-menstruating time, this non-menstruating interval, this time between her two periods, her two menstrual periods. If he had intercourse with her any time between two menstrual periods, then this whole time it's haram for him to divorce her. And also, it's haram for him to divorce her while she's menstruating. So then when can he divorce her? He can divorce her during a non-menstruating interval that didn't have any sexual intercourse. But it's obvious for you that what I just told you is about a menstruating woman. What if she's not a menstruating woman? If she's not a menstruating woman, and menstruating woman here means a woman who's menstruated at least once in her life and has yet to reach the age of menopause. A woman who has menstruated at least once in her life and is yet to reach the age of menopause. So it doesn't mean she menstruates regularly every month. It means now how I defined it for you. What if she's not a menstruating woman? She might not be a menstruating woman because she never menstruated in her life. Or she might not be a menstruating woman because she reached menopause. Or she might not be a menstruating woman because her womb has been removed surgically removed. Then it's not haram for him to divorce her. Then it's not haram for him to divorce her, meaning at any time. SubhanAllah. Then he could divorce her at any time, not haram. And also, she's a pregnant woman. He can divorce her while she's pregnant anytime. This one, some people, they're not sure about. You tell it to them and then they doubt you. But it is the case. It's not haram to divorce the pregnant woman. Okay, so that's divorce. And when it's permissible for him to do it or not, it could be disliked also. Like if she's a good Muslim woman. She's a decent, God-fearing Muslimah. It's not recommended for him to divorce her. Could be recommended for him to divorce her, like if she doesn't pray. Okay. Also, the divorce could be made conditional. Like if he says to his wife, if you do such and such, then you are divorced. If you talk to Fulan, then you are divorced. Or like that. If he says to her, if you eat an ice cream sundae with a cherry on top, then you're divorced. It's valid. Meaning the condition is valid. Why would a man do that? He would do that because there's something he doesn't want his wife to do. So then he raises the stakes on her. And that's what he does. He puts that condition on her. But if she does it, then she's divorced. And there's no way to take this condition back. Once you state the condition, then it's done. It's final. Okay. So that's simple enough. That's the divorce right there. He says, so what would that mean that the condition is valid until she or he dies? Yeah, it doesn't go away. But you could do khula and break the whole marriage contract. That will break the condition. And then remarry. And also sometimes let me just say this real quick. Also, sometimes um, the condition is stated in a way like when he says it, it's open. The words are open, but he means, for example, now. Like if he said to her, "If you leave the house, you're divorced." He means now, while we're in the heat of this argument. He doesn't mean forever. So it's going to mean like what he intended in this case. Go ahead. What's your question? You had a question? You said if he makes a condition like that, then divorces her once, takes her back, if the condition still stands, I didn't mean it in this way. I didn't mean it in that way. I mean, Yani, the divorce that the condition is linked to. Bismillah. Okay. So then that's divorce. Now, what comes about or what happens by this divorce? We look. Has this marriage been consummated or not? If it has not been consummated, then this woman does not have an iddah. She would be eligible for marriage to another man immediately, or even to the same man if they did a new marriage contract would be valid. But they'd need a new marriage contract altogether. She becomes free. But if the marriage were consummated, then she starts her iddah. That's the time before she can marry another man. How long is the iddah? I'll tell you. But before I tell you that, I want you to know that iddah pertains to more than just divorce. Iddah pertains to breaking the marriage contract generally, or interrupting it somehow. Some people need that clarification. So that's why, for example, if one of the two spouses commits apostasy and their marriage has been consummated, then what? The woman starts her iddah. That's Shafi'i school. Or another example, a non-Muslim woman was married to her non-Muslim husband. That's valid. They're married. Yani, we recognize that as Muslims. They're married. But then she embraces Islam, and a non-Muslim man cannot be a husband to a Muslim woman. When she embraces Islam, then what happens? She starts her iddah. And there's other things too. So, if her marriage were consummated, and then her husband divorced her, she starts her iddah. How long is this iddah? It depends on her case. Either she's a menstruating woman or not. So if she's a menstruating woman, then her iddah is 3 non-menstruating intervals, 3 purity intervals. That's the Shafi'i school. Whoever agreed with that way. So how does that work? So we already said when it's haram for him to divorce her. So let's take the scenario that he divorced her in the Sunni way, the way that complies with the prophetic practice. So if he had intercourse with her at some time and he wanted to divorce her and he's a God-fearing man, then he's going to say, I can't divorce her now. I have to wait. So then he keeps in his heart what he has in his heart. For example, like let's say he didn't say anything to her what he wants to do. And then her period comes on. When her period comes on, he says, I still can't divorce her. I have to wait. Then her period goes off. So when her period goes off, then he says, now is time, meaning now this is a non-menstruating interval, and I have yet to have intercourse with her. I can divorce her now if I want to. So he has this whole time now before her period comes back on to divorce her as long as he doesn't have intercourse with her during this time. If he does, then he's going to have to wait again. So let's say he took his time, though. He didn't rush to divorce her. Then she might say, I have studied the knowledge. And I noticed here my husband seems distant, and now it's a non-menstruating time, and he has yet to have intercourse with me. I wonder if he wants to divorce me, because he's a God-fearing man, and if he were to divorce me, he would only do it in a permissible way. So now let's say he did it. He pronounced the divorce. Anytime during this non-menstruating time without intercourse, even if it's the last day before her period comes on, that's going to be counted as her first non-menstruating time, because her iddah is 3 non-menstruating intervals. So anytime he divorces her in this first non-menstruating interval, even if it were the day before her period came right back on, that's going to be counted as her first non-menstruating interval. Then her period comes on. Then it goes off. That's the second one. Then her period comes on. Then it goes off. That's the third one. So when her period comes on, her iddah is over and she's free. She is now eligible to marry another man. Or she could remarry him if he hasn't used up all his divorces. Because a free man gets 3 divorces, or a freeman gets 3 divorces. I'm going to come back to that though, inshallah. So this is the permissible scenario of divorcing a menstruating woman. So then what does this non-permissible scenario look like? You have 2 cases. Either he divorced her while she was menstruating, or he divorced her in a non-menstruating time in which they had sexual intercourse. Either way, the divorce is still valid, but he committed a sin, a major sin. So if he divorced her while she's menstruating, this is haram because he has extended her iddah, because she's still going to have to wait for 3 non-menstruating times to pass. But now he divorced her while she's menstruating, and the first non-menstruating time hasn't even started. So he extended her iddah, and by this he harmed her. So this is haram. And if he divorced her while she's not menstruating, but they had sexual intercourse, this will not extend her iddah. It's going to be the same duration. But this is haram because she might be pregnant. And he doesn't know. And had he known, he wouldn't have divorced her, for example. So to close the door on the man divorcing his wife without realizing that she's pregnant, just so that he would regret that later, then the religion made this forbidden. If he waits for her period to come on, then he knows she's not pregnant. Then he waits for the period to go off so that he doesn't extend her iddah, and then he can divorce her in the non-menstruating time that didn't have sexual intercourse. Okay. Any questions so far? Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna take the mic for this one because it's easier. It's just a detailed question, but I'm wondering because according to some sayings, a pregnant woman can be menstruating, right?
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, like, what that case would be, because it's halal to divorce a pregnant woman, but what if she is menstruating during her pregnancy? That like does it?
Then it's still going to be halal to divorce her because she's pregnant. Now she got the status of pregnant woman, so that means he can divorce her.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's the divorce. Now, that's the divorce with the iddah of a menstruating woman. But what if she doesn't menstruate every month, though? It's still the same. The rule is one rule. That's why if someone says, her iddah is 90 days, I don't know why people like to say that. Tell them, that's not the rule. Don't say that. Say, if she's a menstruating woman, her iddah is 3 non-menstruating cycles. That's according to Ash-Shafi'i. According to Abu Hanifa and whoever agreed with him, her iddah is 3 menstruating cycles, just the reverse. So according to Abu Hanifa, her first period passed. So that's 1. Then it goes off. Then it comes on. That's 2. Then it goes off. Then it comes on. That's 3. So when it goes off and she becomes pure, her iddah is over. You take that saying. And there's only 2 sayings in all the nation of Muhammad. The 2 sayings that I just told you. Those 2 sayings, that's the ijma'. That's consensus. Goes back to the Sahaba. The Sahaba had these 2 sayings. And then the mujtahids who came after them, they went to one of those 2 sayings, according to their own ijtihad, not out of following any other mujtahid. But it can't be any third saying. It says, so for Ash-Shafi'i, it is 3 non-menstruating cycles, while for Abu Hanifa, it is 3 menstruating cycles. That's correct. And that's the consensus of the whole nation. It either goes this way or that way in any madhab. You're welcome. Okay. So what if she's not a menstruating woman? What's her iddah? Then we look. Is she pregnant or not? If she's a pregnant woman, her iddah is until she delivers. However long or soon that might be. Or else her iddah is 3 lunar months. So out of all of that, we didn't say 90 days. Some people say, yeah, her iddah is 90 days. Why you say that? I suspect they say that because what they really came across is that her iddah is 3 months, which is true if she's not a menstruating woman or pregnant. But that's 3 lunar months. But I suspect they saw that her iddah is 3 months. Even in the case of menses, though. Because it says 3 menstrual cycles, for example, or 3 non-menstruating cycles. And so they, instead of sticking to the words they learned or even read without any transmission, they converted that into other words. They said, oh, 90 days? Okay, the iddah is 90 days. Oh, 3 non-menstruating cycles? So her iddah is 90 days. Oh, 3 months? Her iddah is 90 days. That's what I think, or else I don't know why. That's why you need to say the knowledge the way you took it. Don't change it. Don't say it for your comprehension, Yani. Don't say it merely in accordance with your comprehension. Say it like you learned it. So that's it. Now, he divorced her and she started her iddah, which means what? The marriage was consummated. Because if it wasn't, there wouldn't be any iddah. Now, that's it. Their marriage is done? Not necessarily. Because the free man gets 3 divorces and 2 returns. 3 divorces and 2 returns. So if he divorced her, he divorced her by a statement, explicit or implicit, with or without a condition. And then her iddah starts because the marriage has been consummated. If he uses one of his returns before her iddah expires, then they're still married. They don't need a new marriage contract. And that would be by saying something like, I now reinstate my wife, or I now return Fulana to the marriage. or something like that. This return and also the divorce does not require witnesses. The marriage itself requires witnesses, and the divorce and the return do not require witnesses. But witnesses are good. Okay, so he returned her. So she's his wife. According to our scenario, he has now spent one divorce and he spent one return. There still remains for him two divorces and one return. So if he divorced her a second time, then it's the same thing. She starts her iddah, and he could return her before her iddah expires. If it expires before returning her the first time or the second time, then if they want to get back together, they need to do a new marriage contract that no one can force her to do. So if he returns her, she has no say in this. But if he doesn't return her and her iddah expires, then here she has a say. Because he comes back to her, for example, says, what do you think? Let's get married again. So now nobody can force her. If she wants to go her own way, she can. But she's still in her iddah, and then he says to her, I want to bring you back. And she says, no, don't do it. He says, I'm going to do it. She says, no, I don't want you to. He says, I'm going to do it. I now reinstate you as my wife. So she is now reinstated. This one is out of her power. Okay. So if he divorced her once, and then he brought her back, or he divorced her twice, and then he brought her back, now he has no more returns, but one more divorce. And it's possible for him to use more than one divorce at a time. So he could say to her, I divorce you twice. Right there, he spent two divorces simultaneously. So if he divorced her a third time, now he can't bring her back. She starts her iddah, and in this case, she's called ba'in, because he can't take her back. Ba'in means separated. So that's the real meaning of being separated here. Kufab, they say, well, we're separated. What does it even mean? It's like they don't even know. It just means, oh, we don't live together and we act like we're not married. And we have affairs. We have extramarital affairs until we finally get this divorce settled. So they should embrace Islam and abandon all of that difficulty. Okay, so now he can't bring her back. But what if they do want to get back together? Then now it's not just a marriage contract that they need. Now the woman has to go through some things in order to get back to this first man. All of this to deter him from divorcing her thrice. So what does she have to do? 5 things. 1, complete her iddah. 2, marry another man. 3, consummate this marriage. And the scholar said explicitly, by an erection penetrating her vagina. Those are conditions. 4, get divorced from this man. 5, complete her iddah from him. Now she's available for the first man. And for someone to do this so that the woman can get back with her first husband is disliked, not haram. Not haram. Disliked, not haram. Meaning, this couple wants to get back together. And they can't unless she goes through those 5 things. So they get someone just to do marriage contract with her and then do all of those, do what needs to be done there. So she can get back with her original husband. It's not haram, it's makruh. Avoided, not forbidden. The minimum of that is just for the glans penis to enter into the vagina only. If that happens, then the condition is fulfilled. Okay. So We talked about divorce. We talked about the iddah. We talked about the return. Now, while the woman is on her iddah, then we look. Is she returnable or is she separated? Yani, non-returnable. If she is returnable, then, which means he divorced her once or twice only, then she can come and go like she used to come and go when they were married. If she's not returnable, then she has to stay in the house unless she has an excuse. And he would be obligated to provide for her during her iddah. If she's returnable, he has to provide for her completely, like a wife, like she still is wife. But if she's not returnable, then he only has to provide for her lodging, which originally is going to be his place. That means he has to leave his house so she can finish her iddah there. And then she can leave his house and he can go back to his house. So he can go sleep on his friend's couch or something. They can't be alone together while she's in her iddah. If it's non-returnable, he only has to provide her with lodging unless she's pregnant. Then he has to provide her with lodging and food. And she stays in the house unless she has reason to leave. Like, he doesn't support her. So then she has to leave so she can support herself. So that's permissible. And also, yani, some details about sitting on her porch, her front porch, for example, or some things like that we're not going to go into. Now, there's a specialized divorce that you should know about called khula. Khula. Khul, inverted V for the ayn. Khula. Khula. Some people, maybe they call it cool. Tell me about cool, brother. What's cool? What are you talking about? Cool. You know how I like that divorce thing? Cool. Khula. Yes. So khula is a specialized divorce, according to strong saying. Meaning, according to the strong saying, it's a divorce. According to another saying, it's not a divorce. It's a breach of the marriage contract that's not a divorce. If we go by the saying that it is a divorce, then it's going to count as one of his divorces. A man gets 3 divorces, including any khula that they use. According to the saying, the khula is a divorce. If you go by the saying that it's not a divorce, then it will break the marriage contract without spending any divorces. So how does that work? That is by the woman, this is the original scenario, the woman offering a payment to be released from the marriage. It's a ransom. It is a ransom. That's what it's called in the Quran. Iftida. So she's paying her own ransom to be free. But it's not a condition for him to accept. So she might say, what do you want for khula? He might say, $1 million. So that's his way of saying never. And she said, okay, I'll give you khula. I accept khula I accept $1 million payment for khula. Still has to accept it. If she says, I accept, then the khula is done. Then she's going to owe him $1 million. How she's going to get it, though, I don't know. She doesn't have it. Or anything like that. Like $1,000, $100, anything. 5 cents, 1 pence, etc., $1. Or the like, a pencil. Or anything that has monetary value. It's not a condition that it's the dowry. That's something some people think. And you should know that if you divorced her once and her iddah expired and they did a new marriage contract, they're going to do a new marriage contract still having only 2 divorces left. Not that he brought her back, they did a new contract. If you divorced her twice and her iddah expired and they did a new marriage contract, they're going to get married again with 1 divorce left. Also, if they do khula, then she is unreturnable, because that's the point of paying. So if she could pay and then he can still return her, then there's no point in the payment. So That's divorce and khula and idda and return. Now I'm thinking, what's left that is like vitally important? I think that's really what you need, just yani, for functional marriage, to know how to operate. And there's still some other issues like the rules of having more than one wife. If you want to go over that, that needs its own session. And some other issues like we said before, like what if he swears not to have sexual intercourse with his wife? He says, Wallahi, I will not have sexual intercourse with you. There's rules there. Or what if he accuses his wife of infidelity and he doesn't have witnesses? There's rules there. Or what if they have a child together and they divorced? What are the rules of custody? Who has rights here? What are the rights? And maybe a few other things now, they're just not crossing my mind in the book of marriage. But other than these things, like probably most relevant thing, if you wanted more, is rules of having more than one wife. Otherwise, I think what we went through now is enough to have functional marriage. Yani, of course, you need some advice too. And I advise you with two hadiths. One hadith is that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam said, خيركم خيركم لنسائه. The best of you are those who are nicest to their wives. Yani. So that means high status, very good thing. There's several things that are amongst the things that make you amongst the best. Like the Prophet said, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. And also there's some other things that make someone amongst the best. And amongst the things that make one amongst the best is being nice to his wife. That includes being patient with some things. Because the woman a lot of times is so susceptible to her feelings. And the man wouldn't be. So he needs to be patient. He's going to still be nice to her. And the other hadith is that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam said, أعظم الناس على الرجل حقا أمه. The person with the greatest right over a man is his mother. وأعظم الناس على المرأة حقا زوجها. And the person who has the greatest right over a woman is her husband. So that means she's going to treat him well also. If you want something to help gauge this good treatment of the wife towards the husband, think about the good treatment of the child to the parent. Do you know what it means for the child to treat the parent well? It means like not to make them angry, not to make them sad, to do what they ask you to do when it's not haram, and to have reverence for them and respect for them and these types of things. So that's what you're going to do for your parent. That's what a woman's going to do for her parents. And what she's going to do for someone who has greater right over her than her very parents. She's going to do something like that. Wallahu a'lam. I'm out of anything else to say. So if you have a question that I can answer for you, I'll be glad to.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you very much. It was very informative.
May Allah bless you and grant you success.
Ameen, Ya Allah. Ameen.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.